I want to compare India's growth to that of China's because people are saying that China is really facing headwinds internally in terms of keeping its long-term growth trajectory. So this year they'll do perhaps 6% on base effects, but long-term it's going to be 4%. What is India's long-term growth trajectory looking like?
Right. So most of the international organizations put that number at 6%. We put that number at somewhere between 6.5% and 7% for the medium term.
And medium term is 3 years?
Let's say for the next 10 years. Okay. And the reason is two things. The reasons are twofold. One is the fact that the capital formation story, which was absent last decade because of balance sheet issues in the corporate sector and the banking sector, they have been sorted out. And therefore, we do see definite signs of capital formation picking up in the private sector on the back of what the government has done with its own capital expenditure in the last 5 to 6 years. The second reason is the public digital infrastructure of India, which has made tremendous strides in the last 6 years under the government's initiative and public-private collaboration, is leading to both formalization of the economy, financial inclusion, and opening market access even for micro and small businesses. So these two together are not yet fully accounted for in most of the estimates of India's trend growth. So rather than seeing it between 6 and 6.5, we are therefore seeing it somewhere between 6.5 and 7.
Okay. India's potential as a manufacturing hub. You have Foxconn coming to India, obviously subject to approvals. Apple has started production in India. And I wonder whether India is getting a meaningful share, because if you saw Elon Musk's interview with, with our colleague in the US, he said that, the shift has been very, on the margin from what Apple is doing in China. And so it's hard to replace China as a manufacturing preferred destination in the region. What's India's potential looking like here in terms of how much is the country willing to go that extra mile to draw in more capital to be really the preferred investment destination?
The shift so far might have been subdued, but definitely it is there. And part of the reason is that there have been multiple things happening in the world, one-off shocks, the pandemic, the commodity price increases, and the interest rate increases. So obviously businesses will have to weigh the rising higher interest cost. And in general, most of these things don't get decided on very quickly because there is an inertia, natural inertia. You are used to it and you have to move the entire ecosystem in some cases, or at least partially. So these things do take time, but there are definite signs that India is emerging as a viable alternative given its own domestic market size and the ability to create global scale capacity. So we are quite confident that this is just the beginning of a long-term trend which will sustain itself. India, of course, has a lot of work to do in order to make it even more promising as an to make itself a very, very viable alternative.
What is that one thing? What is the top thing?
I think we need to have the last mile connectivity, the local level, ground level infrastructure issues, compliances, clearances, approvals, etc. So what is set at the top in terms of policy direction or even at the state headquarters have to filter down to the local level where there is action.